thank you all for checking out this week's episode. Once again, I'm John. If you like what you heard and saw today, subscribe to our YouTube channel, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and check out our brand new merch store with hats, coffee mugs, t-shirts, other cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Again, thank you all for support. Be safe, and see you next week.
How's it going, everyone? John here, the host of Spirit Talk, and today we get to spend time with the incredible Kelly Murph. Kelly is a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, retired after 22 years. He is the Season 1 champion of Toughest Nails on CBS, which was a great show. And he's currently the director of the Military and Veterans Center at the University of Central Missouri. He's also big into fitness and health, and one of the best follows on social media today. So, Kelly, it's great to have you on here.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
One of the cool things, I think where we want to start here is coming out of the pandemic, and I know I hate dating this type of stuff, but it was cool starting to follow different people. And obviously a lot of people I follow or associate with are either military or law enforcement, but you were one of the few people that I think really used it to your advantage. And it's one of those things where obviously you're a little bit older than I am, but even then it's like playing catch up with technology and using technology as a means to get out an important message or something out there. And it's like, how was it for you as you kind of transitioned into that kind of social media world to get out the cool stuff you're doing for veterans and all this stuff?
Yeah, the show actually gave me a great opportunity. So at the university, my job is to help veterans go back to school, facilitate different things that they need when it comes to education, whether or not they're active duty or veterans or retirees going back to school. But when the show aired, I had so many people reach out to me. For example, I was invited to the capital of Missouri. I met the governor. I met so many members of the House of Representatives, different senators from the state, and so many of them gave me their personal contact information and said, hey, if you know of anything that veterans need, reach out to me directly, because I sit on this veteran committee or I sit on this committee. And because normally, Kelly Murphy's not going to get that invitation from them, but Murph from Tough as Nails, they reached out to me and said, hey, we'd like to help in these ways. And a lot of them have held true to their word. I've reached out to a few of them just about some veteran stuff that was raised to me. So I just forwarded to them for their action. And then different organizations, for example, there's a few places that do service dogs. They reached out and said, hey, we have some service animals we'd like to donate to veterans. And I just connect the dots. And, I find some veterans that are in need, and I just connect them to the organization, and the organization takes over. So I do it a lot through Instagram, posting the stories. Mostly a lot of Instagram stories is how I get a lot of the word out, random posts. But social media has been a great way to help give back to the veteran community.
One of the interesting things there, when it comes in terms of giving back, and you've served 22 years in the Marine Corps, and I do want to talk about eventually the transition into the civilian world and all using military skills into what you're doing now, but serving the military veterans and people coming out now, was that always going to be your goal, even after 22 years, to continue to give back to other people and other veterans?
I think so. I think, when you get out or you retire, whether or not you're in for a couple of years or in for a career, when you see other veterans that are transitioning, you just want to make sure that their transition is smooth. And for myself now, my youngest daughter has been in the Navy now for 2.5 years. So
awesome.
She's serving. She's actually home on Christmas leave right now, so I've got to see her the past few days. So now I'm helping people that are like my daughter, these young military kids that are serving their country. So when they transition back to the civilian world, there's a bunch of us, older guys and older ladies that are, willing to help out these young kids getting out of the military.
When you first joined the military, in terms of recruitment and in terms of as you transitioned out, what changes have you noticed? And obviously, you can talk about your daughter, the recruitment for your daughter versus you, and then as you transition out to what's happening now, what are some similarities or differences you've kind of noticed, or some really good things that the military is starting to do now?
Well, I think a lot of the things that I noticed with recruiters nowadays. So when I joined the Marine Corps, I basically kind of stumbled into it. It was English class right before lunch my senior year, and one of my friends turned around to me and said, "Hey, what are you doing after school today?" I'm like, "Hey, I'm not doing much." He's like, "Why don't you talk to the Marine Corps recruiter with me?" I thought, wow, Vernon's really looking out for my future, think about me. Well, he really wasn't. He was looking for people to join under his name to get promoted. But at the time, I gave him credit for looking out for me. I went and talked to the recruiter, and by that afternoon, I was sold. So I joined the Marine Corps that week for 6 years of my initial enlistment. I didn't really talk to any of the other recruiters, but sometimes what I think the recruiters are doing now is some of them will actually encourage the young men or young ladies that they talk to all the branches and make a decision based upon what's best for them. I noticed that with my daughter's recruiter when he came over to the house to speak to her about the Navy. He actually mentioned, "Hey, it'd be a good idea to go talk to these other branches too and see what they have to say." So I'm not saying all of them do that, but I've noticed several that I've talked to in our local community actually talk to kids, and they'll encourage them to check out another branch if they don't think that branch is right for them, which is pretty cool thing to do.
Do the current, and I don't like to get political, but with current events, whether it's a war or just stuff happening in the military branches, does that affect the recruiting process? Like, how does that happen? Or maybe during the pandemic, were less people doing this because didn't want to get the vaccine, or vice versa? Like, how important is it that when you comes to recruiting the military people today, that the ultimate goal is serving other people and giving your life in service to others, but is there any time where you kind of sit back and watch the news, or how I must say maybe the media, how they put this stuff out there where it's like, maybe I want to serve, but then you see something on the news, you're like, well, what am I going to do that? Because there's a person saying the VA sucks right now, or this person saying it's great, or they're saying I got to do this if I want to do that. It's like, as if you're a young kid that wants to do this and serve, some of the stuff might be scary off to the point where it's like, is it even worth it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll use example. I was on recruiting duty during September 11th.
Oh,
So when
wow.
that happened, I was actually in a high school talking to kids about the Marine Corps, like our mission, doing we call them career talks. And, a teacher pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you need to check out the news." So I went down to the teacher's lounge where, a bunch of teachers were huddled. And I'm like, wow, can't believe what's going on, just like the rest of America. And then my next 2 years on recruiting was during that time. And the recruiting numbers at first, the willingness to join was high, but the commitment was still about the same as it always had been the previous year I was out there. So it does generate a lot of interest. At the time it did. But when it came to overall numbers, my recruiting numbers really stayed about the average the whole time I was out there, right? I would say for about the 6 months after 9/11 happened, the inquiries and the amount of people that wanted to serve increased. But unfortunately, a lot of them were like guys my age at the time,
Right.
wanting to come in, people that were disqualified, wanting to pick up, arms for the country. But unfortunately, the qualified candidates were about the same.
When it comes to the qualifications to get to that level, and I understand because I was in the federal government, and there was, at the time, I believe the Secret Service was, if any age past 37, you can't join because you've aged out. But is that something that the military has to look at and see if, like, maybe is there loopholes, like positive ones, where it's like this person might not be able to be out in the field, but we could use his intellect or skill set for certain stuff? Like, how, in terms of that stuff, how lenient is the branches when it comes to, if this person really wants to serve, we could use them in this way? But is it difficult to do that, or do you have to all fall under the same umbrella?
Well, each branch has its own, requirements or regulations. I know for like the age requirement at the time, I believe the Marine Corps for us was age 28 was like the cutoff, but you could do an age waiver.
Gotcha.
So each branch has its own waivers for whatever like qualifications, and those waivers go up to, if they're big waivers, they would go all the way to the headquarters. Sometimes the local commander can sign a waiver off. It just depends upon, how significant that the request is, I should say. But I know each branch can waive their own qualifications depending upon the needs of that service.
You've openly in other podcasts talked about how you dealt with the VA and some of the benefits and all the stuff that people the stuff that's out there readily available for people to use and take advantage of. But it's like I've also talked with people that had poor experiences. So like I guess the question is there anything the VA could do that could be more helpful to veterans, or is this one of these things where a lot of these situations maybe come down to the individual? Um, and you also talk about taking advantage of opportunities, and maybe there's certain people that aren't taking advantage of these opportunities. So, is there a correlation here with individuals versus what the VA is actually doing or not doing?
That's a good point you brought up. I've seen the VA go good and bad with different people. You'll talk to one of my coworkers now, and they had a great experience with the VA. VA was there to serve them, did all the follow throughs, and then I meet other people that say the VA failed them, didn't follow through, had to wait forever. I wish I could really answer that question. I think the person that can answer that question needs to be hired by the VA to be the problem solver. Because I've seen it go both ways. Like I said, I've seen the good stories and the bad
Right.
stories.
Yeah, it is fascinating because sometimes you hear the stories I hear of some of the people who have fought in like the Baghdad and like Afghanistan, Iraq, and everything. They're pissed off because they don't want to take these medications or they're yelling at the therapist there. But then you talk to people maybe a little bit older or currently like the last couple of years, and it's like, oh, I'm having great experiences. They're setting me up with the right programs, with the right outreach. So part of me is kind of like there's only so much a certain organization can do. Now, obviously, every organization can improve, but it comes down to the individual to take advantage of certain your life, right? And it's like, and I love that you talk about that because it's like, here's you, all these opportunities that came up, take advantage of them, right? Because if you don't, someone else will, and you'll still be kind of maybe sitting in your self pity.
Yeah, I think for me, like just knowing so for example, when I help people out with the VA, when it goes, maybe I'll use the example going back to school, is research and find out everything that you're eligible for. And then from there, start making the phone calls or the contacts early and be proactive instead of being reactive. So when it comes to going back to school, find out what you need to do as a veteran to, get your certificate of eligibility, find out what you need in order to get enrolled, do all your homework, and that way you're more prepared. It also relieves your frustration too.
One of the things when I work in my company, I do a lot of the hiring of whether it's law enforcement, military. A lot of the stuff I've come across when it comes to resumes, the military guys and women will say these crazy radio skills, all this stuff that you're obviously great at, but I think it scares off civilian people that are hiring you. And so when I go through a resume, I see comms and us, I go, well, you're great with communication skills. And so I go through there to help them do their resume stuff. Was it difficult for you to translate your military skills and training into something that would appease or make sense to a civilian person that's looking to hire someone?
Yeah, because I mean, no matter if you're in for 4, 6, or 20 some years, you have a certain way of talking.
Right.
Yeah. You use acronyms, you use lingo that the military is very familiar with, and it's so embedded in you that you don't realize that the civilian population as a whole doesn't talk like that. So I wrote my first resume and I thought it was great. So I went to a person that I knew that had experience writing resumes, and I had them look at it and they're like, no, that's no. And I thought I did a good job taking out, all the verbiage. And so I let them take a look at it. And so I would suggest that you take it to either, well, for example, every base, at least on the Marine Corps, has a transition assistance program where you go to this class for a couple of days or a week at a time, and you learn how to transition. The VA comes and talks to you. You have resume writing classes and things of that nature. I would take advantage of those. LinkedIn also has some good people that you out to for resume help, but I would actually seek somebody that can actually assist with the resume. Like I said, I thought I did a great job of transforming mine into civilian lingo, and I was told, no, that's trash. So they helped me write mine. and it captured my first job. I was an HR manager when I first retired. So they have captured that, because I would have never thought that's a route that I could have went when I retired from the Marine Corps. And they're like, hey, about HR. And because they looked at my resume, and I'm like, well, I never thought about that. And they helped create that resume specifically for the HR field. And that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize. You've done multiple things in the military. You can have resumes that cover multiple skills based upon what career field you're looking at.
Right. If we, as you've lived the military career for 20 years and you get close to retirement, is there any fear on your part that maybe the civilian world's not going to be adequate to what you're used to, or like that safety that of, like you said, the comforts of the lingo and the language and the relationships you have? Is there any fear on your part as you kind of come into the civilian world?
Well, actually, I was scared to death. So the Marine Corps, I went in when I was 18, and then, I retired when I was 40. So, my whole adult life was spent as a Marine. So transitioning was very scary, because I'm like, I don't know what to expect. Everything from, okay, I wear a camouflage outfit every day to work, and now I have to wear different clothes every day. Like, just everything changes. So one of the things I talk to about veterans is, for me, it's physical fitness. I find the one thing in life that I can count on to always be there, because I know your schedule is going to change, your work attire is going to change, the time that you go to work may change, your lunch hours will change. Everything changes from military to civilian, but find the one thing that you can be consistent and count on. And for me, it was just physical fitness, because that's the one thing that I could always count on that would be there. That was the norm for the military, was physical fitness. Excuse me.
It's one of those things where I can only imagine the difficulty, especially with the job you have now, as veterans are transitioning to the civilian world. You had to finish your career, the 22 years, all while trying to figure out what you're doing next while maintaining the job you're currently doing. It's like, I can see where veterans in that little time period, and the reason I say this is because I went to high school with one kid, and he went to the military. He struggled for like 6 months to a year after leaving, because he got into the booze, and he just got like this crazy, like, I can't do this, it's tough. And it's like, he just got inundated with the transition. And it's like, could you kind of maybe touch upon that, how the difficulty of maintaining your current job in the military, all while preparing the next part of your life?
Yeah, I remember when I submitted for retirement, I picked my retirement date. Headquarters Marine Corps came back and approved it. So now it's like, okay, excuse me. So now I'm like, now it's game time. You're putting out your resume, you're applying to different jobs. And I know at first I applied to a couple and I wasn't getting any phone calls back. I'm like, wow, nothing yet. And then I started applying to more and more, and I kept a little tracker, so I knew exactly what I applied to, the date I applied for it, so I could do my follow-ups and things of that nature. So you are right. You're still doing your normal job, because that doesn't go away. You're trying to find a job that's totally different from what you're doing now in a lot of cases. So it was stressful just to find that balance. So I would just pick at certain times of the day where I can do a little bit of follow through with jobs, make some phone calls during lunch to do follow up on interviews. And then it was really a matter of just staying organized, knowing who you talked to previously, who you applied to, what positions you applied to. Like I said, keeping track of the resumes. I had 3 different versions for 3 different career fields I was looking at going into. So making sure you just stay organized is really, for me, is what helped keep the stress down.
Whenever I see like these like veterans on the streets that are homeless, or just down and out veterans that serve this country, and like they don't hate, like the mental health is off or their physical health, it's the anger I have when I see that. And again, not to get overtly political, but when you see all these bills and all this pork added to all these bills about funding other stuff, it's like, this isn't me knocking the fact that I think every human being on this earth has the right to live healthily, safe from harm. But why aren't we, or what is the reasoning why our number one priority right now isn't helping our homeless veterans or veterans that serve this country? Like it just boggles my mind. Is there anything you could touch upon where it's like, how do I direct my anger towards that into a maybe a beneficial thing where maybe there's an organization I can reach out to as a civilian and be like, I want to dedicate this time or this. Like, what do I do to focus my anger in the direction that's actually helpful?
I know it's sometimes we lose. I've lost faith sometimes with the government when it comes to that. You
Right.
see so many, the videos of the homeless veterans
Yeah.
and just in general. I encourage people to write their representatives, write the representatives that they voted in and ask them to do something about it. I mean, really, that's when it comes to the government, that's really all we can do is reach out to our elected officials and let them know, hey, these are things that as a taxpayer and somebody that voted for you, that's what we would like you to focus on.
Right.
Sometimes I get that those representatives work for us. We don't work for them. So they need to do some of the things that we're asking. And I think our government, the left or the right as a whole, have
Yes.
gotten be the people are their bosses. And I think that's something I wish they would remember.
Yeah, it's crazy that obviously war involves politics and who's right and who's wrong, but it's like the aftermath of that should not be political. Like it just boggles my mind that there's not more emphasis on cleaning up our streets. And by cleaning up, hey, you a veteran, like let's get you some help, let's get you some clothes, let's find you a job. It's like the people out there want to help. And it's just for me, it's like when you watch the news, it's like you just get turned away from wanting to be helped. I don't know. It's just such a weird thing, man.
Yeah, and sometimes you get burned because
Yeah.
you hear about this organization that was great. Maybe people donated to it, and then you find out that it was all a fraud or a scam, and it makes a lot of people gun shy, on just giving to an organization in general. Like, is this another one that's going to pop up in the news in the next year, saying, "Hey, it was a fraud organization, and now all that money never went to who it was supposed to go to."
You kind of mentioned a couple of questions ago about the dedication to the fitness and gym and stuff like that. But for those people that maybe are looking for that purpose or that kind of hobby that they can hyper focus on, what advice do you have for them that for those that maybe don't think they have enough time in the day to do that? Or because for you, if anyone follows your Instagram, which I highly suggest, I mean, you're doing crazy deadlifts and squats, like all this, you're super dedicated to the craft and fitness and healthy living. But for those that want to get to that position, like what are some early steps they can kind of do to kind of get to what maybe one day be at your level?
Well, I appreciate the compliment. I think just finding the time in your schedule, making the time for yourself, because nobody's going to make the time for you. So I get up a few days a week and early in the morning, and I try to get my training done before work, and then sometimes it's after work. Right after work, I leave the office, head to the gym, knock out the workout, then try to get home at a decent hour. So I think it's just finding the time, and then once you find the time, make it a habit. It takes a few weeks to establish a habit.
Right.
A habit of doing that, whether or not it's building models or reading a book or just finding time for yourself. It's once you get a time that you're used to, just stick with it, and then before you know it, when you miss that opportunity or you miss that level of what you're doing, I guess what I'm saying is once you establish that habit, and then once you miss a day, then you'd be like, oh man, I feel miserable for missing that day, and you won't want to miss again. There's certain days we just can't do what we want to do because of
Right.
schedule, whatever. But if you can just make it a habit early on, then I think that definitely helps. And then find what really makes you happy.
When it comes to the physicality of doing the weights, have you always been someone that when it comes to what you do, whether it's a deadlift or squat, do you also have to eat healthy? Has that always been something that's always been part of your career and life in terms of it's a big package where you have to eat healthy, sleep, and stuff like that? Or are you able to kind of dabble here and there in different aspects of it?
Well, in high school, I was like super skinny. like the kind of skinny that you get made fun of for. And then when I joined the Marine Corps, so I started lifting weights a little bit my junior year of high school. I had a coach that was very instrumental. He was a former Marine, and he was a big guy. He was like 6'4", 260 pounds, Cherokee Indian. He was an amazing coach. He was a great mentor. He was strong, and he would open up the gym for us every morning before school. And he's like, "All right, see you tomorrow." "Yes, coach." So you would go lift weights before school, and then you go to school. Then whatever sport you were in, you'd practice in the afternoon. But he's the reason why I still lift weights in the morning, because he created that habit in 1988 when I was a junior. And then I continued that in the Marine Corps. And obviously during the Marine Corps, a lot of your PT time, your physical training morning. And then especially if you were in the infantry side or the ground side, your PT is a focus. It's a part of your life. And as a Marine, physical fitness is part of your life. And then when I retired, like I said, I wanted to keep that up. And I knew that I didn't want to turn into some of my friends that unfortunately kind of let themselves go. So I just made sure I was eating right. I track my calories and stuff like that. I don't go overboard. I just try to eat healthy, and just try to maintain a certain weight. But I'm just focused on the strength stuff. I love strength training. I started CrossFit when I was in the Marine Corps, and I kept up with that. So I'm a coach at our local gym. And we call it Red Horse Fitness. It's owned by an Air Force veteran of mine that's a friend. He works at Whiteman Air Force Base. So we have a lot of veterans that use the facility, and we talk to them about, staying healthy, helping them out for their PT tests and things of that nature. So that's what my passion is physical fitness. I love training people. I love making people healthy. I love helping people pass the tests that they couldn't pass. Excuse me. We have a young lady right now that she's a local police officer. She wants to pass the SWAT, the local SWAT test. So we're helping her get better physically. So when she takes that test, she can crush it and, hopefully go into the SWAT field in her career. So that's what I enjoy, is just helping people get better physically. I mean, it helps mentally too. Those of you that, you finish that workout, you feel so much better mentally when you walk away than you did when you went into the gym, no matter what kind of training you do.
Now, as we try to transition into when you won season 1 of Tough as Nails, like, even when you go back and watch some of the episodes when it first aired, like, you look at someone like you, it's like, man, I don't know how you bet against this guy. So before we even get to you winning that and some of like the aspects of the television drama, how does that even how do you even hear of this show? Do they reach out to you, or is this something, again, like, you take advantage of the opportunities and just submit your resume? Like, how does this come to be?
Well, so it's a long story, but I'll kind of make it short. When I retired from the Marine Corps, like I said, I was doing CrossFit stuff. I was at a competition, and this company's like, "Hey, we'd like to sponsor you." And I'm like, "Okay, what does that mean?" They're like, "Hey, we'll throw you some shirts, every so often, you wear them, post them on social media." I'm like, "Okay, I have what social media?" And they're like, "Instagram." I'm like, "Oh, what's Instagram?" Excuse me. Like, "What's Instagram?" And they're like, "Okay, old timer." I'm like, "Old time? I'm like 40 years old." And they're like, "Okay, start an Instagram account." So that's why I started my Instagram account. So this company would, give me some shirts. I would post to social media, maybe a picture of me wearing it or a video working out in the shirt, and I'd shout them out. So the Instagram grew just a little bit, not much. And then in January of 2019, I got a message saying, "Hey, my name's Jonathan. I'm from the Discovery Channel. I'd like to talk to you about a show." So I deleted the message because I thought it was spam or, a scam. And so not much longer, I got another message, and he said, "No, I'm real. Check me out." And I did some research, and sure enough, he was a casting producer for Discovery Channel. So I did some Zoom calls for one of their shows, and unfortunately their show just never got off the ground. But I walked away going, "Man, that's a cool opportunity. I've never done casting for a show before." And several months later, so October of 2019, so later that year, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, Murph, CBS is doing this show. You'd be amazing. You should apply." So he sent me the application. I clicked on it. It took like 30 seconds to apply. And that afternoon, CBS called me and said, "Hey, can you do a Zoom call tomorrow?" I'm like, yeah, sure. So I did a Zoom call. And then about a week later, the casting team said, "Hey, can you do another Zoom call?" And I said, absolutely. So we scheduled it. This time it was with Phil Kogan, the host of the show, and several other of his co-producers. And Phil specifically talked about one of my deadlift videos. And he just talked about one of the deadlift videos that I had on my Instagram and asked me some questions. And he said, why would you want to be on a show like this? And really, I retired from the Marine Corps at 22 years. My full plan was to go 30. And the reason I retired at 22 was because I did so many deployments back to back that I wanted to watch my kids grow up. Yeah. At the time, this was in 6th grade. And I knew that if I stayed in another 8 years, most of that time would be deployed or away from the kids. So that's why I retired at 22. So part of me felt like I had some unfinished business. I'd been retired from the Marine Corps for about 9 years when the show opportunity came up. And I'm like, well, Phil, I want to prove to myself that I could still kick ass like I did when I was in the Marine Corps. And he said, thanks very much. The Zoom call lasted maybe 2 minutes. So I walked away going, okay, well, this is a great opportunity, you know, 2 minutes call. And then about a week later, the casting team called me and said, hey, we'd like to fly you out to LA for the casting process. And that was in December, right before Christmas. And you do a bunch of different things for casting. You know, you do like a physical, you talk in front of the camera, and then, you know, background checks, things of that nature. And that was right before the week before Christmas of 2019. And I think January 2nd of 2020, Jenny, who's the casting director, called and said, hey, Murph, we want you on the show. Could you be out here on the 15th for 30 days? I'm like, wow. I'll see what I could do. You know, I had just started my job at UCM, so I had to talk to the president about the time off. And, you know, I explained to him as much as I could, you know, because you have, you know, the confidentiality agreements and the non-disclosure forms. So I can only tell him so much, but he got the idea what I was going to do. And he said, absolutely, take the time you need. So in January of, I think it was 15th, I flew out to California, where you film all 10 episodes within that 30-day period.
It's so funny because, again, like I said, some of the people on there, you're just like, dude, this Murph guy is gonna eat these people up. And it's like, but I guess my question is, and obviously you did, but like, how much was it difficult for you being who you are with your background? Because every time I've had like a guest on the show that's had to do like reality TV, like Naked and Afraid or like Alone and stuff like that, how the drama that gets manufactured, created by the production and stuff, does that ever get in the way of you or like your game plan? Like how much of this show specifically for you was the real deal as opposed to let's create some drama here?
You know what? That's the best thing about the show, actually, is that like Phil and his team don't produce anything.
Oh, that's awesome.
The only guidance they gave us was be yourself and just do the stuff the best you can. And that's it. So everything because people ask me, is the show real? I'm like, 100% it's real. Awesome. There's drama. There's no script. We don't do something again because it didn't look right on camera. You know, somebody didn't read their lines right. Yeah, it's a totally unscripted. So everything that you see, at least for the season I was on, it's real. No, you know, when we argue with people, that's a real argument. When you see people crying, those are real tears of joy or real tears of sadness. So it's definitely 100% real. And that's why I support the show to this day. You know, that's why I try to, you know, shout out Tough as Nails or let the people know that season 4 is coming out, just because the show is genuine and true. And it's, you know, it's a lot of team building because there is the team aspect to the show. You know, and the show will surprise a lot of people. You know, for example, Michelle on my season, 62-year-old lady, is not very tiny, and she eliminated some of the top males. So she's the genuine, don't judge a book by its cover. And I knew that as a Marine. Some of my smallest Marines were my most fierce Marines ever. So I knew that and you never know what people's skills are, you know, because that's not physical. That shows about, hey, what can you do with your hands? what can you do with your mind and your hands together? So a lot of that show, it's just not about brute force. It's about life skills and life knowledge.
And part of the thing I thought was interesting, you mentioned teamwork, but as it got towards the end, you were the last one on your team. And it's spoiler alert for people who haven't seen it yet. But how was it difficult for you in those situations, whether it's tough as nails or say it's just you working on a project or you working on trying to get this SWAT officer ready? Is it you versus the world mentality, or is it something where it's like your training experience? It doesn't matter the situation. You can harbor your own, whether it's an individual team aspect itself.
Yeah, I think I know when to turn it off and turn it on. When do I focus on my team or when do I focus on me more?
Right.
And I think that's the good balance about the show is, a lot of times you are competing, especially on an individual day, you are competing against your teammates and with the potential to eliminate them. But that's what you have to do. You have to go hard against them because that's what you do, as a competitor. But at the same time, the next day, now you're working together side by side with the person that maybe you just eliminated. But now as a professional that, hey, we have to work as a team today. So no matter what happened yesterday, that's water under the bridge. We have to work together on whatever the project is, whether or not that's life or military or a TV show.
And they brought you back for, I believe, season 3, correct? When they did the training at Camp Pendleton.
That's correct.
So that's kind of cool there.
Yeah, that was an amazing experience. Phil reached out to me earlier, obviously before they even started, and said, "Hey, what do you think about a military themed episode?" And I thought that was a phenomenal idea. And we wanted to get Merrill, who is the retired Air Force colonel from season 2, involved, but the logistics were just too hard to kind of get the Air Force and the Marine Corps. So we ended up, it was focusing, it was a Marine Corps episode. It's filmed on a Marine Corps base. There were real Marines in support of the show, Marine equipment being used. But that's where I spent 15 years of my career. So when I go back to Camp Pendleton, It was the first Pendleton that I retired. And it was like a homecoming because I'd been on that beach many times as a Marine training. So with that location, meant a lot to me, being back on the base, being around Marines again. It was phenomenal. And then to be part of the show, it was great. And plus there was no pressure for me. I wasn't competing. So I got to back, watch, relax. The stress of competing wasn't there. I just had a great, I was out there for a couple of days for, for the filming of the whole episode, which took 2 days. It was just an amazing time. It was a great experience. I was so thankful for Phil to bring me back out on the show, to get to meet the contestants. It's very humbling too, because when they see you, they're cheering for you. And I'm like, I'm in the same position you were.
Right.
It's different, but they're like, hey, fill us in, give us your guidance. And what would you do different how would you approach the season? And it was just cool to give them a little bit of guidance from what it was like to be on season 1. But it's so cool to be back on Camp Pendleton, on the whole organization of the show.
Has that experience? I've had Captain Dale Dye on the podcast, and we became the really famous military advisor for films and TV shows. Has that been an opportunity that's come your way yet through Phil, or maybe a different production company where it's like, this guy has the training experience, maybe utilize him on maybe creating an actual show specific to the military or something like that?
Not yet, but trust me, if something like that,
That's awesome.
I'd be more than willing to listen to that opportunity, because that's like the big thing. I'm willing to. I'll try anything at least once. That's how I got involved in. I'll say modeling. Is a company reached out to me after the season premiere and says, "Hey, what do you think about modeling?" I'm like, "No, that's not my." They're like, "Oh, come on, we'll fly you out. Change some clothes. We'll take some pictures of you." And so I said, well, okay, I'll try it. I'll give it a shot. I don't want to turn down an opportunity. And then that afternoon, they offered me, hey, we want to keep you on. So I go out quarterly to this one company and do workwear modeling for them. And it's been in their catalog now the last couple of years. People be shopping on Amazon and said, hey, Murph, I just saw you on Amazon or whatever the company is. So
Right.
That's an opportunity that came because of the show. But, I didn't want to turn that down. So I'd rather try something and fail at it than to not try something and wonder the rest of my life, man, what could have happened if? And I never want to use the word if.
Right.
Sure, okay, you sucked at it. Okay, I got an acting coach because I was offered a position to possibly. So I did some acting lessons for a little bit, and I'm like, maybe not right now. I need a lot more practice. But I tried it. I would try it again too if the right opportunity came. But at least I know what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, what I could work on to be a little bit better at.
Well, it's got to be cool for you to have, again, you take advantage of these opportunities that lay at your feet, and why not take the shot, right? But for other veterans that are in these similar shoes, when they see you do this stuff or even win that show or what you're doing now, it's like, how cool is it for you to be a role model for someone that is looking for that, maybe that gumption or that energy to follow their dream or find their passion or hobby. And here you are doing that every day. It's like, it's got to be kind of cool too for you to see like your impact you've had on people's lives.
Yeah, I just consider myself a normal dude that had a great opportunity. But I do, people write me a lot. I had a few, so for example, this one Marine that I mentored like 20 some years ago just reached out to me like not too long ago because he just retired. And he said, I just want to let you know that the reason I had a successful career were the things that you taught me the first year I was in the Marine Corps. And I'm like, wow, that's impactful. You never know what kind of impact you make in people's lives. Sometimes you'll never know. But I had so many people reach out to me, Marines that had served around me when I was in the Marine Corps. And they're like, hey, Murph, just so you know, I'm successful because of this thing that you showed me, or I tried to emulate you. And, that's very humbling. And I think all veterans, no matter what branch of the military you're in, you mentor the person underneath you, and you mentor multiple people. And sometimes you just may never know, but just know that you do make a difference in people's lives.
Right. You've mentioned your daughters and being a father, but in terms of your upbringing versus you as a father today, like what are the changes you've noticed when you were a kid with your parents versus you as an adult with your kids today? Like, is there anything out there, like how difficult is it to raise daughters in this day and age?
I don't know. I think I'm a very lucky dad. I have 2 daughters and a son, and I mean, they never gave trouble. We try to always tell them what the expectation was, and then, give them the tools to help meet it. And I just got lucky. They're all good kids, staying out of trouble, doing what they need to do as adults, because all of them are adults now, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But, my dad was a good dad. He was an Army in Vietnam, blue collar worker, so I got to see what hard work, and my mom was a factory worker. So, I had blue collar parents. So I understood what hard work meant. My kids watched us grow up, or watched us as parents working hard. And I just think they grew up seeing what work ethic looked like. And I think that's for me, the best thing I could show my kids is, hey, this is what a good work ethic looks like. These are the things you need to do to be successful. And then hopefully they'll do what they need to do to be successful as well.
Right. Man, this has been awesome, Kelly. Before I let you go, if people want to reach out to you or follow your life and career or see your motivational insane deadlifts you do, what's the best way? What's your Instagram? Is that the only social media you use? Like, if people want to talk to you, reach out to you, support you, how do they do that?
Instagram is what I'm on mostly. It's KWMURPH 72. So KW Murph 72. I also have a Twitter with the same handle, but I only started Twitter to help support the show. So when the season comes out, I'll post some stuff about the next Tough as Nails season and things of that nature. But I'm on Instagram like almost every day, posting something, shouting somebody out, just communicating with people. But that's definitely the best way to reach me is through Instagram.
No, it's awesome. And again, thank you for your service to the country and what you're continuing to do. And it was an awesome talk.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, hello. I'm just enjoying this nice fucking candle. Anyways, I'm John, the host of Spear Talk, and I want to talk to you about Nice Fucking Candles. We are lucky to have Nice Fucking Candles as a sponsor of the podcast. And if you use code SpearTalk15, you get 15% off your first order, or use the affiliate link below to always get your candle needs through Nice Fucking Candles. Nice Fucking Candles are 100% soy wax. They have a 65-hour burn time, maybe more if you nurse the flame a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not an expert on flames or candles, but I will say these things burn a long fucking time. You ask me about the wick, it's a double wick for even burning, which is amazing. And they come in 3 incredible flavors. I'm not sure if you're going to be eating these candles, but if you do like them, the scents are eucalyptus and ginseng, tobacco and fireside, and seaside and driftwood. Once again, Nice Fucking Candles. They are the candle company for Spear Talk. And if you love candles and need a good scent to clear out your office, your room, your podcast room, your weight room, your whatever you're doing in a room that smells like crap, use this candle. It's amazing. Thank you. Check them out. Love Nice Fucking Candles.